What are the linkages between India and Indonesia? China and Bangladesh have recently concluded a pact. India is signaling that it is actually become a dominant defense exporter in the Asian region. Indonesia has decided to purchase BrahMos missiles as well as Astra missiles from India. Majority of their names have been derived from Sanskrit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a three-nation tour covering Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand. This current affairs pertains to his tour and the highlights of his tour with respect to Indonesia. We can observe India and Indonesia here, two major economies in Asia. What are the linkages between India and Indonesia geopolitically? That is what we have to understand in this particular current affairs. India and Indonesia have been sharing wonderful relations in the recent past. However, there has been one more update coming from some other country which has caused concerns amongst both the countries. What is that country? That is China. China and Bangladesh have recently concluded a pact whereby Bangladesh's Mongla port would be leased out to Chinese government. Why has this raised alarm bells in both the governments? Bangladesh's Mongla port will issue or will connect China directly to the Bay of Bengal. And both India and Indonesia are dominant players in the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea. So this is a cause of concern as to how China would intrude into and erode the influence of both these countries in this particular territory. All right. So this is a cause of concern for both of them. And in a way, you can say that since China and Bangladesh came together and concluded this pact, very soon India and Indonesia also decided to come together and conclude this particular defense agreement. So in a way, this can be understood as a tit for tat happening between India and China. Now, why is Indonesia such an important country for India? India's 40% trade passes through some very important waterways. What are the waterways that we speak of here? The waterways include the Straits of Malacca, the Straits of Sunda, and the Straits of Lombok, which fall as part of Indonesia geography. So, without access to these straits, India's trade will be negatively impacted. So, being geopolitically associated with Indonesia is a very detrimental, is a very important requirement for India. Plus, not only this, Indonesia plays a central role in India's ASEAN strategy. What is ASEAN? ASEAN is a group of 10 Southeast Asian countries which have come together to control or to become an economic bloc. India has been ever trying as part of its Act East policy to become closer to these ASEAN countries. And since Indonesia is the dominant economic power in amongst these 10 countries, so getting closer to Indonesia is automatically as an opportunity to get closer to the other countries and have a greater influence on this entire region. All right. Now, particularly about this tour that the Prime Minister Modi concluded recently with Indonesia, we can see a few facts here, like multiple agreements which have been signed between both the countries. There's a temple in question, there's a particular honor in question, etc. So all of this have become the highlights of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Indonesia recently. Indonesia has decided to purchase BrahMos missiles as well as Astra missiles from India. This is a great leap forward for India because until recently, India was a net defense importer. Now, by selling BrahMos as well as Astra missiles to Indonesia, India is signaling that it is actually become a dominant defense exporter in the Asian region. And because recently we also observed the same BrahMos missiles were being sold to UAE, so these indeed project or portray the increasing market for India's missiles and defense technologies. So Indonesia becomes a major partner in defense with India in this particular perspective. Now, speaking about how Indonesia treated Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Indonesia decided to go ahead and award their highest civilian honor to Prime Minister Modi, what they call as or refer to as Bintang Adipurna. Why is this important? This can be taken as a symbolic episode. However, it has a deep diplomatic as well as geopolitical implications. Diplomatically, an honor of the highest order from Indonesia confirms the fact that India is actually moving in the right direction with Indonesia. Plus, India's geopolitical outreach seems to be taking place very fantastically and going in the right directions according to this particular honor that is being bestowed upon Prime Minister Modi. All right. Another important highlight of this trip was this temple. This is a 1,000-year-old Shiva temple that is located in Yogyakarta in Indonesia. What happened here? Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indonesian president have signed a letter of intent announcing that India shall be helping Indonesia in rebuilding this entire temple. All right. Why should India be concerned about a temple in Indonesia? Please understand, India and Indonesia are two countries that have deep cultural and historical ties. India and Indonesia share similarities when it comes to Hinduism, when it comes to Buddhism, when it comes to Sanskrit as a language. We have had naval diplomatic relations between both the countries for 1,000+ years now. All right. Indonesia has been deeply influenced from Mahabharata and Ramayana, the epics that India has lived through. And recently, if you look through the statement of the president of Indonesia, he said majority of their names have been derived from Sanskrit. So Hinduism, Sanskrit and Buddhism have connected both these countries together. Beyond this, what have been the recent relations like? Both countries established their diplomatic relations in 1949. And since then, both the countries have upgraded their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Beyond this, both the countries regularly meet each other in G20, in East Asia summits, in IORA, and bilateral meetings. So there has been a lot of communication that is happening between both the countries throughout the history. Right. So India's decision to reinvigorate this historical ties includes the renovation and the upkeep of Prambanan temple, that is the same Shiva temple that we spoke about recently. All right. One more highlight about this episode was that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the first Prime Minister of India to address the Parliament of Indonesia. All right. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi was invited to give an address to the Indonesian Parliament in Jakarta. This is the first instance by any Prime Minister per se. This is also a symbol of how deep the relationship has actually taken place in the recent past. All right. Now, what have been the two pillars of this relationship? We understood that there is a lot of history and culture associated with both the countries. Beyond that, what has been the contemporary relationship looking like? One, the relationship currently is about defense cooperation. Interestingly, please understand, both the countries have agreed to develop upon a port which lies at the tip of the state of Malacca. Look at this. The sea is what is popularly called as a Sabang port. Sabang port lies at the tip of Malacca Strait, and then India controls this Bay of Bengal through its Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So by leasing the Sabang port from Indonesia, India has played a master stroke here. How is that so? Through its Andaman and Nicobar Islands, India, however, has a lot of port infrastructure. Beyond that, by leasing the Sabang port and using it for military and naval purposes, it can literally choke the entire Malacca Strait at any given point of time. This is what China fears the most, because majority of China's energy supply today cross through the Malacca Strait. This is a desperation that is pushing China to go and build strategic relations with Pakistan as well as Myanmar and Bangladesh today. With Pakistan, it ended up developing the CPEC, and with Bangladesh, it has recently announced the takeover of the Mongla port. Please understand a lot of geopolitical and defense dynamics involved in these particular things. All right. So coming back and continuing with the defense cooperation, Beyond this, the recent, as we just saw, the recent agreement of selling the BrahMos and Astra missiles is a great step forward in this defense relationship as well. Second pillar is the critical minerals. Indonesia as a country is known to have massive resources which concerns about nickel, cobalt, etc., which are important for India's ambitions to go through green energy. That means these would be used in your EVs, etc., etc. So Indonesia's resources would be critical for India in the coming future. All right. What are the main aspects of this relationship? One, maritime cooperation, because both these countries share a great sea between both of them. So it has been going on for centuries now. Second is Act East policy. India sees to Indonesia as a major country which can benefit India's future and growth through its Act East policy. Act East policy of India tries to bring India closer economically to all these South Asian countries, and the dominant being Indonesia. Then we have defense manufacturing and defense exports from India, and then also the critical minerals. These are the these are the cooperation sectors that we can highlight between both these countries as of now. So please comment as to what do you think about the relationship between India and Indonesia would look like in the near future. This is about it from today's current affairs. I'll see you in the next one.